It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interview. Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Rose, answer. Yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome on in. Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker. We're talking on the radio.
Are we? Is that what this thing is?
106.9 FM, 1390 AM. We're also on mobile apps. Yes, 106.9 The Fan mobile app.
As opposed to immobile app. I guess you just call that your computer.
We're also streaming online, 1069thefan.com. A lot of ways to find us, even if it's not live and in real time. We're on podcast feeds. Just go find the Full Court Press podcast. Always love to have you be a part of the show as well. And text into the program, 435-339-0321. And before we launch into our topics for this hour, a couple of different texts coming through on the Full Court Press text line. 4781 texting in. Who are you picking to win the college championship tonight? And why is it Ohio State by 23?
Is that what the line is? Please tell me it's not the actual line.
I don't think that's the actual line.
It is 8.5. That's a sizable line for a championship game.
I think it will be Ohio State. I think Notre Dame can make it interesting, but I actually think Ohio State will cover.
How do we have two different people text in like almost within a minute of each other asking who we are picking in tonight's football game? 9315 and 4781. Like I said, within a minute of each other. Both asking about that. I'll say this. I think I've said it a few times on air. I've said it to about everybody who's asked me about the game, or really about the whole playoffs, where I've said I have just this little itch where I'm kind of rooting for Ohio State just because I want Ryan Day to give the biggest old double middle fingers to Ohio State fans who are wanting him fired after losing to Michigan.
Right. Like every year they're not satisfied with 10, 11 win seasons.
Yeah, and being title playoff contenders like basically every single. I don't think they've made it every year, but like they've been in contention to be in the playoffs every single year. Obviously, they've been in the playoffs a couple of times. So, yeah, if he wins it and then just, goes off to be like a coordinator or something in the NFL or something like that. I just want him to like win it and then dip and just be like, all right, this is what you wanted. And there's your championship, and I'm out. Good luck with the next guy.
Yeah, I mean, I love the Marcus Freeman story. I like what Notre Dame has been doing. I just think that there's just more talent on the Ohio State side, and I just think they're a deeper, more talented roster. And just when I see them play, I see more playmakers all over the place wearing red.
Yeah, well, it's a lot like when Notre Dame was facing Alabama way back when. That was the Manti Te'o days. And, I mean, heck, the thing I remember most about that was a preview that I happened to read. Like, it was why each team will win. They went through each team and explained, like, why will this team win the national champion? Like, what are the things going for them? And with Alabama, it was like they got this big old beefy offensive line. I think they had a great run. I can't remember which running back they had back then, but this is back when they were like this power running team, weren't always having these like borderline Heisman quarterbacks where they kind of evolved there. But like all these different things, one of the top defenses in the country, power run game, great offensive line. And for Notre Dame, it was like, it would just be destiny for them to win. I was like, yeah, I think
there's no legitimate excuse.
I think
it just sounds nice.
Yeah, I think there's a problem when your best argument that you're going to win is it would just be destiny. Well, I think at that point, Manti Te'o's girlfriend had already like been exposed as fake. That was a whole viral thing.
Oh, that
happened.
That was sad.
But yeah, I'm feeling similar-ish. But as I was telling one of the guys next to me that I work next to, like, who do you think is going to win? And I was like, somebody's going to blow out the other team. Because that's pretty much just what happens. Somebody's going to blow out the other team. if you told me which one to pick, I'd say it's probably Ohio State. Who knows? I could be wrong. I've been wrong a lot of times. So it's like somebody's going to blow out the other team. It's going to be like a 14, 20-point margin. Although now that I say that, it's probably going to go like quadruple overtime because I can never be right in my prediction.
Yeah.
But
a game for the ages just because Jason said
just
it would
because
not
I
be.
said it's going to be a blowout, because that's what like 80% of college championship games, like the most engaging part of the college football playoff is talking about the college football playoff. The games themselves are just more often than not trash because they're boring. They're not exciting after like the second quarter. Sometimes you get an absolute gem, but it's just so rare.
Yeah, those are few and far between.
You're usually just getting a good bowl game. Like not even one of the playoff games, just one of the bowl games will be this gem. But the playoff games, some of the most boring football games you'll watch.
A couple of the texts came through before we started the hour, 5338. How about those Detroit Lions, spelled Lyins?
I feel bad for Lions fans. I was, if you were to tell me like who of the teams from this second round would you really want to win it all, and I probably would have told you the Lions, them or maybe the Texans, just because you root for teams that haven't made it as far, and I would have really loved to see the Lions get pretty far, especially make it to the Super Bowl. Even if they lost, it'd been kind of cool to see them in the Super Bowl, but getting Bills-Chiefs again. Mind you, I'm always excited for a good Bills-Chiefs matchup because it is almost always a good game between those two.
Yes.
So it's nice. It's becoming the new Peyton Manning-Tom Brady matchup.
I'm totally okay with Bills-Chiefs.
Yeah, I can mostly live with that.
Yeah. But yeah, the Lions, like it's that their loss is more about how the Commanders won than how the Lions lost.
Well, I mean, how many turnovers the Lions end up with? Like a bunch.
A bunch.
You also had what was the other team that had a bunch of turnovers? Like it seemed like turnovers were a big thing.
Baltimore had a lot of problems with turnovers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had Detroit had Goff threw 3 interceptions. Jameson Williams threw an interception. They had a couple of fumbles, at least one fumble.
Yeah,
that was lost.
And just every turnover just slowly making it worse. Because, like, for a while you could just think, okay, the Lions, they're within reaching distance. There was always, hey, look, if you just have a drive here, then you could get something going. But they just never actually get that. Whenever they needed a key drive, Jared Goff threw a pick. Or the one time, Jameson Williams, you're so bad your non-quarterback threw a pick. So usually when your non-quarterback's throwing, it ends up as a pretty decent play because it's trick plays and catch guys off guards. But they just they couldn't get out of their own way, and I guess that's what happens when you put all your faith in Jared Goff.
Yeah, well,
they get you far.
It's hard to overcome 5 turnovers in the game.
Yeah, well, and 4 of them were from him, weren't they?
3 of them were from
him. I thought he had one of the fumbles. Yeah, he lost.
Oh,
a fumble.
did he? He lost.
So
he did lose a fumble.
He was responsible for those turnovers.
4 of the 5 from one guy.
Got beat by a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, Daniels looked good.
Yeah, he's looking really good.
Bobby Wagner, 8 tackles.
Yeah, pretty solid.
Did not lead the team, but he's still up there very high.
He's third in tackles, so he's still out there playing a big role, helping the team get wins. Wasn't responsible for any of those turnovers, but playing that middle linebacker role, playing that solid. So making a deep playoff run. He's not made a deep playoff run in a while.
It's been a minute. He's been there before.
Oh yeah, he's Super Bowl champion.
He's got a ring.
So maybe, I don't know if he's going to get one with the Commanders, but they're in the NFC title game, so anything's possible at this point.
And then the Rams and Eagles game was also interesting. I thought that Eagles left the door open a lot. The Rams had an opportunity. I was actually pulling for the Rams just because they're just kind of a team that kind of really reinvented their season. Started off really bad, and they improved a lot over the course of the year. And of course, they had that beating the Vikings, and everybody was all excited about the Vikings. They beat them pretty soundly. But Well, the Eagles eventually pulled it off. So going to be the Eagles and the Commanders on one side and the Chiefs and Bills on the other.
I don't know. I didn't really want either the Rams or Eagles to win, to be honest. I don't like either of these teams. But it was a fun one because that's the one that got all snowy.
Yes.
That was one where, and several of the turnovers I think were directly caused by just
that Bills-Ravens team game was pretty snowy too.
Yeah, well, not nearly as much because it was
as bad as the Eagles game.
Like it snowed a little bit and you got a dusting of snow, but then it calmed down by the end mostly. But there were points in this game where like guys could barely catch the ball. Like probably half of Matthew Stafford's incompletions were passes that hit the guys in the hands or chest, but like the ball's so slippery. Like I don't blame them for dropping. It's just like that's just what happened on a bunch of those throws. They did start connecting by the end. They kind of got used to it, figured out. But at other points, it looked like the guys were like running as if they were on ice because they're like being super careful and trying not to just completely biff it by taking too long of a stride. But yeah, like one of the late, like Karen Williams, I think had a fumble late in the game, and that was probably one of the biggest reasons why they lost, at least as far as clutch plays go. You could, mention problems they had earlier in the game. But, I mean, even then, after the Eagles went up by 2 touchdowns with 4 minutes to go, there's half a second where it looked like the Rams could come back. And, heck, they dang near did, where they had the ball and a chance to have a game-winning drive, but turnover on downs in Eagles territory.
Yeah. So, you got the Chiefs and Bills again. That'll be on January 26th on CBS at 4:30. But the game earlier will be the, what are they calling it? The I-95 showdown. Eagles and Commanders on Fox. That'll be at 1 o'clock on January 26th. Currently, Philly is favored by 5.5. Kansas City is favored by 2.
Yeah, those will be interesting ones. I kind of would expect the Chiefs and Eagles to win these ones just because the Chiefs have the Bills numbers. I will be 100% pulling for the Bills here. I want to see Bills Commanders, just trying to manifest Bills Commanders, but knowing my luck, we're rooting for both those teams. It's going to be Chiefs Eagles. And wasn't that last year's Super Bowl?
Chiefs Eagles?
Yeah, wasn't that
last year? Who?
And the Chiefs are gunning for a three-peat, aren't they?
Who was in the Super Bowl last year?
I haven't really paid that much attention to the Super Bowl since the Patriots haven't been contending for it. So I just watched, like, I don't even know if I've watched
San Francisco.
It was San Francisco last year. Excuse me. The Eagles have made a Super Bowl in the last couple of years, though. Like,
it was in overtime. I forgot about that.
Yeah, well, Super Bowls can actually be exciting games, though. Super Bowls are they're like the opposite of the college football playoff, where it is usually close by rule, and it's weird when it's not. That's kind of the interesting thing. At least since, like, the 80s and 90s. Like, in the 80s and 90s, it was a blowout like half the time because the NFC was just whooping up on the AFC. But now it's actually close.
Super Bowl Sunday, February 9th. And so we've had these playoff games here on The Fan, and we'll continue to have the games. So if you're out and about and trying to find a way to tune in and listen to games, just have The Fan ready, 106.9 FM or 1390 AM. Unfortunately, I don't think we have the streaming rights to those playoff games. So you have to be listening over the air on the radio.
Yeah, so it's one to be listening to in your car when you're out and about. Nice to be able to listen to those instead of typical Saturday, Sunday programming.
Right. By the way, circling back to the college football playoff championship tonight, 9315 asks, if Ohio wins it, will Jason go plant his flag?
Not unless I want a felony or something like that. Isn't that what the proposed thing was? Or?
Well, wouldn't it be if Notre Dame won it and then went and planted their flag on the Ohio State logo?
Yeah, maybe. Or like go to the one end zone that'll be painted Ohio State, because I imagine one will be Ohio State,
right.
One will be Notre Dame.
Yep.
Go plant it in the Ohio State end zone or something like that.
Right in the O.
Yeah, basically just be as deliberately disrespectful as possible. And then get into a fight. I'd love to see a post-game fight for a championship game. Because usually it's the one team celebrating, the other team's laying on the field, with their head.
They're distraught.
In their hands, and the camera guy goes up to him and shoves his camera up his face mask, like, here, show the despair to the American people.
I want to see your sadness.
I want to be able to see the individual molecules in every tear. The American public demands it.
That's right. 435-339-0321. If you want to chime in, let us know your thoughts or your predictions for the college football championship game, or the AFC or NFC championship games, that are coming up. 435-339-0321. Any teams that have surprised you along the way in these NFL playoffs. And we had some pick six items that had to deal with the playoffs.
Yeah, we did 2 or 3 of them, I think. I added it all up, so.
Yeah, so we'll circle back to those in a little bit. In fact, let's take a timeout right now here on the Full Court Press. When we come back, let's take a look at what's going on currently in Region 11 high school basketball. We're at the kind of halfway point for our high school basketball teams in Region 11 for both boys and girls. Latest RPI rankings are out. Give you an update on the standings. We know we've got some teams that are in action this afternoon. I believe Logan and Ridgeline girls are both in action, playing separate games, not against each other. I think they tip off at 5:30 this afternoon, so shortly with different teams. So we'll give you the current standings before those games begin. Coming up next here on the Full Court Press.
It's cold outside, but you can keep warm inside with a quality-built, super-efficient York furnace. Count on a furnace from York because it's backed by the strongest warranties available. It's just another way we install confidence. Call Advanced Heating and Air Conditioning, your local York dealer, at 752-7272. Online at advancedheating-ac.com. York, install confidence.
We're not comfortable until you are. Advanced Heating and Air.
Many Aggie fans like to go to the game. Some fans love to yell at the TV, and all fans like to wear a shirt or a jacket with their favorite team's logo. Aggie fans find the best selection of USU logoed apparel at Locker 42. Find yourself an Aggie t-shirt for $10. Locker 42 features Aggie logoed hoodies, jackets, and golf shirts, and a hat wall with over 40 styles. Women's specific apparel, youth sizes for the junior Aggie, and toddler and infant Aggie items as well. Locker 42 is a store for Utah State fans by Utah State fans, and proud to be part of Aggie Nation.
Let's start the new year right with a huge winter clearance at Daryl's Appliance. This is Jay with Daryl's Appliance. Overstocked inventory, display models, scratch and dent appliances, and more are being discounted to clear out for the new year. Plus, easily qualify for 12-month financing to spread out your purchase. See store for details. Only at Daryl's, where service always comes first. Daryl's West on Airport Road, open until 6 p.m. on weekdays, 5 on Saturday.
Adams Wealth Advisors tailors your future with expert in-house help. You need a CPA? No problem. Legal help? They can do that. And of course, certified financial planners with years of experience watching over every move.
This is Craig Adams. At Adams Wealth Advisors, we are here to help you receive peace of mind, whether you've done a lot of planning or a little planning. Count on our team at Adams Wealth Advisors for honesty, professionalism, and integrity.
Visit AdamsWealthAdvisors.com or call 752-1702 to schedule a time with an advisor today.
The Aggies, Jazz, high schools, even the Pee Wees T-ball team. It's the Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, The Fan.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker. By the way, quick programming note, Utah Jazz are on the road tonight taking on the New Orleans Pelicans, tipping off at 6, pregame at 5:50. So we'll be out just a little bit earlier than normal here on the Full Court Press.
Rematch of the tank-off. Let's see, are they doing the same injury report stuff? Yeah, pretty much all the same guys for the Jazz are out.
New Orleans has won 3 in a row. They're getting a full-ish roster back.
Walker Kessler should be back today. He's not on rest anymore.
Good to have him go up against Zion.
Is Zion going to play? Yeah, Zion's out.
He's out?
Yeah, he's listed as out. Non-COVID illness.
Oh, gosh. Of course.
Got a stomach bug after eating a bad Chinese or something.
Tankathon continues.
There you go. Where are the Jazz in the Tankathon rankings? Didn't they get to 4th? Oh, they're 3rd. They have the 3rd worst record in the league. There you go. Just ahead of New Orleans. Got to lose this one to New Orleans, and then you'll be fairly firmly in 3rd. Charlotte will be within a game or two, but gotta go after those losses.
That's right. Got to stack them. Looking at high school basketball, Region 11 high school hoops for both boys and girls. We're kind of at that midway point right now. So we thought we'd like to look at where things are. Just an update, latest RPI rankings, and looking at the standings as well. And in boys basketball, it's Green Canyon right now that's currently on top of the state in 4A RPI rankings. They have a 17-1 record, number 1 in RPI. Ridgeline is number 4, not that far behind. Ridgeline is that one team that was able to bring down the mighty Wolves, and Ridgeline is 14-4 overall. Those two teams are the two that are currently tied in region standings at 6-1. Although it's Green Canyon has been taking that loss out on other opponents since then.
Yeah, Logan kind of got the. Of course, Logan took Green Canyon to a fairly close one. It was like a 5 or 6 point game at Green Canyon, but then they went back to Logan, and Green Canyon was just like, nah. It didn't end well.
Did not end well for the Grizzlies. There's a bit of a gap between those two when you look at the RPI rankings. Skyview will be the next rated team from Region 11 that shows up at number 14. Westfield at number 16. Bear River at 17. Logan at 19. And Mountain Crest at 22. And, the Skyview Bobcats, they're 5-2 in region play. And that's a team that can still surprise. That's a team that went into Ridgeline and beat the Riverhawks. Had Ridgeline on the ropes and had a lead in the first half on Friday, but Ridgeline rallied back, and Ridgeline was able to win on the road on Friday. So kind of interesting, kind of back and forth there with some of these teams. Yeah, so Ridgeline, it was looking like a 3-horse race for the region title, where they were all playing rock, paper, scissors against each other, with Green Canyon beating Skyview beating Ridgeline, and Ridgeline beating Green Canyon. But with Ridgeline evening that series with Skyview and sending Skyview to 2 losses, the only hope for Skyview now to get in, barring Green Canyon losing to Bear River, Westfield, or Mountain Crest, which doesn't appear particularly likely, or if they lose again to Ridgeline. But of course, if Green Canyon loses again to Ridgeline, then it's the Riverhawks who come away with the region title. So Skyview, kind of that outside, third party that would maybe be able to clean up the pieces if one of the top 2 teams slips. But I think it's very much going to be now down to a 2-horse race. Green Canyon, Ridgeline, who wins the rematch of that game, that team I think is going to win the region title. But it should be an exciting finish because you got 2 good teams. Green Canyon has like the star, the guy who's probably going to win, region player of the year, could be one of the best players in 4A if he's not already the best. But the thing about Ridgeline is I don't think they have like a star, but everyone on their team can pass. Everyone on their team can shoot. Like just about everyone on their team can rebound. Like, do they have a guy that averages 17, 18 a game? No. But everyone on their team can average like 9 a game and grab a couple of rebounds, and they can defend. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic there with the Riverhawks where everyone's good. Of course, Green Canyon has a pretty similar dynamic too, plus a star. It's why they're the number 1 team in the state. Right. But Ridgeline's shown when they put these things together on offense and defense, they can still take down these teams like Green Canyon. So I think it'll be a very interesting race to the end. Yeah, Green Canyon currently with the best offense and the best defense in the region. When you look at average points scored and average points allowed, playing some very solid basketball on both sides. And then when you look to the girls' ranks, looking at the girls' basketball RPI, Ridgeline is running away with it. They're still number 1. Though, Snow Canyon it'll be interesting when you get to the state playoffs to see what happens between these 2 schools. Snow Canyon is 18-0. Ridgeline is 17-0. Ridgeline is getting attention nationally, considered in the top 25 among girls basketball nationally, according to some different ranking systems that are out there. But then there's a bit of a gap between number 1 in the standings in this region and number 2, because the next rated team is Skyview, who's 3-2 in region play and number 8 overall in the 4A standings. Mountain Crest is at 11, Green Canyon ranked 14th, Westfield 21st, and Bear River 24th in the 4A RPI ranks.
Yeah, I wondered if Ridgeline was going to take a slight step back where they lost a lot of great players, but maybe I just kind of forgot that Ridgeline just reloads. They have a lot of great players waiting in the wings. Of course, they still had some returners, players coming back that are still pretty solid. But yeah, Emily Skinner just stepping it up to another level, where she's averaging, I think, career highs in just about everything. She's on 4 straight 30-point games now. She's just out there scoring up a storm, getting a bunch of rebounds as well. But you mentioned that Snow Canyon, because both Snow Canyon and Ridgeline are undefeated. Ridgeline with their 18-0, Snow Canyon 17-0.
Other way around.
The other way around. Excuse me. But Ridgeline, they got Emily Skinner, who became the 4th player to score 2,000 points as a girls basketball player in Utah. Snow Canyon has the player who became the 3rd to do it, Olivia Hamlin. So you've got a couple of players that are all-time scorers in girls basketball playing at the same time and will very likely be running into each other in the playoffs the way things are going.
Yeah, and we look at the Region 11 standings. Ridgeline does stand apart from everybody else. But then there's like a group in the middle that there's still a lot of movement that could happen here, because Skyview, Mountain Crest, Green Canyon, they're all like close together in how they've performed so far. And even Westfield not that far behind. So there could still be a lot of movement that happens in these Region 11 standings as they continue through the back half of the region schedule throughout the rest of January and into February as well.
Yeah, there's some really interesting things about all those teams where you got Mountain Crest slowly rebuilding, where they were a team that used to spend a lot of time at the bottom of the standings. Now they're moving up. Skyview, a team that has been kind of in the middle, now fighting toward the top. They got some pretty good players. And Green Cane, who they were used to trading blows with Green Cane, so they've fallen off a little bit, but they still got some really good players and are putting up a fight. So yeah, that fight between 2 and 4 is going to be kind of interesting, I think. Unfortunately, when you got Ridgeline, it's like, yeah, they're going to run away with it. Sometimes high school sports just be like that. The one team is just way better. You got the 5-star recruit. There's not a whole lot you can do about that. But still going out there, being competitive and being the best you can be, well, that's what high school sports is all about.
Yeah.
And I think those 3 teams are going to represent a lot of that.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I think we've got some a game or two planned here coming up soon with some more girls basketball games that are going to be covered on CashValleyDaily.com. So stay tuned for that. Also, one other note of high school sports passed along this Friday. It's Region Swim. The Region 11 swim meet will be taking place, and we've been able to stream these swim meets the last several years on CashValleyDaily.com. We've been able to find some former swimmers, former coaches who have been able to help us out with these broadcasts to add their expertise and things that they observe and share. And we're excited to do that again this Friday. But now with Westfield in the mix, like there aren't really any good facilities up here with that many swimmers.
Yeah.
And so the Region 11 swim meet is actually going to be taking place down in Bountiful at the South Davis Recreation Center. So for those of you that may not be able to make it down there in person, we're working on an online stream on Cache Valley Daily, so you can watch those the swim meets that will be taking place throughout the day on Friday.
Yeah, that's obviously a huge deal. So there's so many people involved. Obviously, a lot of people going to want to be watching their school, their kid competing. So it's one of the best things we can provide is the opportunity to still watch that, even if you can't quite make it.
Yeah, I actually made the trip down to that facility on Saturday. Just made a quick down and back, just scouted it out, make sure we knew where we could be setting up and to talk to their facilities people, and they knew we were coming. So it was a good way to kind of scout that out. But we've got some great swimmers in this region, and there have been some great battles, just teams squaring off against each other, getting ready for this region swim meet coming up on Friday. So always interesting with the new school in the mix, how that looks. But I know Ridgeline, Skyview has had a great swim tradition, Mountain Crest as well. So will be fun to see what happens on Friday down in Bountiful.
Yeah, you tell me you didn't sneak into the rec center, snoop around, but all right, what do we got in here? Crawling through the air ducts and whatnot, trying not to get caught by security.
No.
Like what you did with Utah State football practice.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I have a habit of doing
just walk in.
Walking in and being in places where I shouldn't be.
That's why we send Eric.
Yeah, that's right. It was a very busy facility on a Saturday afternoon in January.
That's a huge population center. Just the one giant city from Layton to Provo feels like, where it's just one continuous city all the way through there. So Wasatch Front, there's a lot of people around there.
Yes,
and of course, isn't Bountiful county seat of whatever county it's in, or are they still in Davis County?
They're in Davis.
Okay, so that's not the county seat because Farmington is.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't think that Bountiful was the county seat, but it is the South Davis Rec Center. I don't know if there is a North Davis Rec Center.
If it is, it's probably in Clearfield.
I'm not as familiar with my Davis municipal buildings.
I grew up in Davis, and I still can't remember.
Recreational facilities.
Yeah, I grew up in Davis County, and I just flubbed a city that was in the county I lived in. But I just assumed Davis County is so small that as soon as you go 15 minutes away, you've already left the county.
You've already left. Yes. 435-339-0321 if you want to chime in on the Full Court Press text line. Updated RPI rankings and standings through high school basketball. What's going on with Region 11. Of course, we try to get as many of those games covered on local radio and video streamed on CashValleyDaily.com so folks can follow along. And if you missed any games from last Friday, you can go back and catch them on Cache Valley Daily, where all the games are archived and photo galleries of a lot of those games are available as well. And then big swim meet coming up this week. I think we're also going to be, I think we've got some wrestling that's lined up that we're going to be streaming as well. So stay tuned for some wrestling matches that we'll have on Cache Valley Daily.
A lot of fun stuff.
Yeah, it's a busy time of the year. 435-339-0321 if you want to chime in. We've talked about the NFL playoffs, college football championship, which is taking place tonight. Utah Jazz are also in action this evening, taking on the New Orleans Pelicans. We'll look at that game coming up next here on the Full Court Press.
S.E. Needham Jewelers is where Utah gets engaged. We offer a large selection of personalized service and extraordinary benefits with our integrity price guarantee. At Match Quality, you'll find our prices to be as low or lower than any store in the state. We consistently beat any 50 to 70% off sales, internet pricing, or so-called wholesale deals. In fact, we even price our diamonds at internet pricing. So you'll get S.E. Needham quality at internet prices. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 7, where Utah gets engaged. S.E. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block, at the sign of the clock.
CashValleyDaily.com, your go-to source for all things local. Get plugged into the pulse of your community with our comprehensive local news coverage. From city council decisions to feature stories highlighting people in your own neighborhood, we've got you covered. But that's not all. Catch the adrenaline of live, local sports and the latest news involving the Utah State Aggies. Don't miss out on crucial information that affects you and your loved ones on CashValleyDaily.com. Stay informed, engaged, and empowered. Because staying local means staying connected.
They never could play it, but they sure can talk about it. Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker on the Full Court Press.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker. And by the way, the game did go final a little bit ago. Forgot to mention to you, but there was a game in the Mountain West earlier today. It was New Mexico and Fresno State, and the Lobos took care of business, 95-67.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
So they now move to 8-1. In conference play. Utah State is 6-1. Colorado State, UNLV 5-2. Boise State 5-3. San Diego State 4-3. And then Nevada 3-4. And then the Wolfpack coming to Logan on Wednesday.
By the way, 8968, before we jump into some other topics, I mentioned it being, pretty big cities, kind of one giant city from for the Wasatch Front. 8968 noting that as well. It says one big city from Ogden to Provo. I'm glad I don't live there anymore. Actually, Brigham through Perry is starting to fill in bad. Yeah, it's just we're filling in a lot of different places.
It's just, yeah, you're right. There really aren't very many breaks.
I feel like there's a bit of a gap between Ogden and like some of the northern Davis County cities, but it does feel like it's closing a little bit.
Yeah, it's filling in one large metroplex.
Yeah,
all along the mountains.
So like I couldn't tell you where like the boundary between Kaysville and Layton is. I tell you where the southern boundary between Kaysville and Farmington kind of is. Well, I'm not sure there. So I don't know. It's crazy. Anyway, enough about geography. We really got to get into Pick Six and the Utah Jazz and all that.
Yeah, Utah Jazz are in action today. Now, there are a number of NBA teams that played earlier today. It's kind of an NBA tradition, play games earlier in the day on Martin Luther King Day. Cleveland, by the way, Cavaliers were one of those teams. Sam Merrill helped his team get another win. Cleveland is now 36-6 overall. But Sam Merrill off the bench, 22 minutes for the Cavaliers, 10 points, 2 rebounds, 2 steals, 1 assist. Nice outing there as they beat Phoenix 118-92. But Utah Jazz are in action this evening, taking on the New Orleans Pelicans. And, by the way, sorry, we needed to mention this too. Nemish Queta, Boston Celtics also played earlier today. They beat up on Golden State 125-85. Beat them by 40 points.
Yeah, just absolutely crushing it. One thing I thought was kind of interesting.
Sorry, Nemi, by the way, got in and 3 points, a bucket, and a free throw.
There you go. But yeah, one thing I want to point out is you look at Cleveland and Oklahoma City. Those are 2 teams. Cleveland's on pace for 70 wins. Oklahoma City's on pace for 68 wins, maybe 69. Like 2 just dominant teams that are just running their conference. And I believe they split their season series, didn't they? Or did Oklahoma City win both? Because Oklahoma City won the one that was like last Thursday or Friday. Mm-hmm. And they played once before, but I couldn't remember who got the first game.
I will tell you here shortly.
But you still got these 2 teams dominating. You've got a crop of young stars for both teams. Donovan Mitchell, leading the Cavaliers. I guess, I don't know, a lot of us felt like he couldn't be the top guy on a team. Of course, he did leave the Jazz to a number 1 overall seed that one time. Maybe does the same with Cleveland. Maybe they drop it in the playoffs. But Oklahoma City looking like, honestly, they're a spectacular team. They've got their own young stars, MVP candidate, great supporting cast.
They split their series.
They did. So they did split it. So I think it's going to be interesting to see some new teams because, like, a lot of the teams, everyone's like, oh, these are going to be the teams. It's going to be everyone. All the talking heads say all the Lakers because they always throw them in there. But the Lakers have been mediocre for like 5 years. Justifiably, everyone put the Celtics in there, and they're the 2 seed, so they're living up to expectations. But, I mean, look at a lot of the contenders that looking like they're maybe the top teams. It's Cavaliers, Celtics, the Knicks are up there, Oklahoma City, Houston's the 2 seed, Memphis, kind of resurging there with Ja coming back. It's looking kind of nice and getting some fresh blood after the last 5-6 years have been dominated by the Bucks and the Nuggets and whatnots and 76ers is those teams that have been pretty dominant across the 2 conferences, but we're getting some fresh teams at the top.
Yeah, Houston has been an interesting one where that's they went to the tank mode. They were several years in the tank mode and started to get a collection of solid young players. And then they were able to get a great coach who was unceremoniously fired at his last position and brought him in, and he's given them a new identity. And these younger players have gotten a lot of experience, and now they're starting to figure out how to win games. And they're number 2 in the West.
Yeah.
That's really surprising to me.
Well, and they added a couple of veterans, because you have the young guns who've been kind of leading the team for the last few years. Jalen Green, of course. Jalen Green had a weird career path where at one point they looked like they were going to trade him because he was looking like he was just this empty calories scorer. Now he's leading the team in scoring. But again, they're number 2 in the West. Alperen Sengun has become one of the more underrated centers in the league. But the 2 veterans, Fred VanVleet and the man everyone hates, Dylan Brooks, and he kind of deserves that because he's a bit of a jerk. But but then more young guys: Amen Thompson, Jabari Smith, Cam Whitmore. A lot of guys competing. Holy crap! I didn't realize Jeff Green was still in the league.
Yes,
and he's like in his second stint with the Rockets. But yeah. Some good stuff from the Rockets. But I guess you got the Jazz. Dead last in the West. And trying to keep it that way if they lose to the Pelicans tonight.
That's right. Yeah, and that's what we want. We want the Jazz, like the ideal scenario, and we've seen this a number of times, play competitive basketball, but not good enough because we don't want to win. Jazz are clearly in a development mode and trying to play their hand for the upcoming NBA draft in June.
Yeah, so just hope that you just hope at the end of this, like I might just cry if we get to, I forget when the draft lottery is. Isn't it like in late May or something like that? It's a late May or June or whenever they do the lottery. It's like right before the NBA Finals, like it's the middle of the playoffs or something like that. If you do the lottery and they get like the 5th pick, like I would just die a little inside.
But yeah, for tonight for the Utah Jazz, looks like Jordan Clarkson is out. John Collins is out.
Basically, everybody who was out for the last game against the Pelicans.
Johnny Juzang.
Minus
somewhere
Walker Kessler, who's returned.
Broke his hand. Hurt his hand somewhere. Not even sure how that happened.
Danny Ainge punched it so he'd have few players.
Lowry Markkanen. Micah Potter's been sent to the G League, which I don't understand because he wasn't he starting? Didn't he start a game?
I think he started a game. Kessler coming back may have facilitated that.
Yeah.
Where you don't need as many bigs, but I don't know. And there's only, because Mike Potter's a two-way player, so you got to kind of manage it. So, because you can't play him you only get about, I think, half the games for these two-way guys. So, kind of tricky for them.
Yeah, and for the Pelicans, Dejounte Murray is available, but Brandon Ingram is out. Zion Williamson is out. So they've Herb Jones is out. So they've got a couple of guys that will be missing tonight for the Pelicans. But that's a team that's won 3 in a row, and see what they're trying to do.
Good for the Jazz. Got to get that win streak.
Yeah.
By the way, I had a text. I missed this because we were going back. We were talking still about geography in the borders in Davis County. 8968 noting that he thinks the boundary between Layton and Kaysville is Dairy Queen. I mentioned I didn't know where that boundary was.
The Dairy Queen?
I know exactly the Dairy Queen he's talking about. Those of you who live in Kaysville or Layton probably know, but that's about where I think it was. But I can't remember exactly.
There you go.
That's kind of what I consider to be. But yeah, I went to that Dairy Queen a lot, actually. I don't even know if it's still there.
Fair enough. So anyway, Utah Jazz
couldn't care less.
Will be tipping off at 6 and pregame at 5:50. So not that far away from here. Grizzlies beat the Timberwolves earlier. Knicks beat the Hawks. Cavaliers beat up on the Suns, and as we already said, the Celtics destroyed the Warriors. So it's going to be interesting when we start to get into this time of year. Teams that felt like they should be playoff type teams who are struggling, they're going to start to open up if they are interested in making trades to help get them over the hump to secure their position in the playoffs, while others that have been kind of middling back and forth who are going to clearly say, no, the playoffs are not in our interest. They'll start to make their players available. Playoffs are not in the interest of the Utah Jazz. So we're at this time of year where Jazz players start to get mentioned as potential trade, not necessarily targets, but players involved in trades. And, I don't know that we have enough time to really get into that right now, but it is trade season now. We're starting to see teams start to make some deals.
Yeah, we'll just watch for, at least as far as the Jazz, as potential trade partners for the Jazz to send players to and get returns back, like draft returns. Obviously, always get a return in a trade. That's how they work. But the Mavericks, like basically, look at the teams that are kind of in the play-in that felt like they shouldn't be in the play-in. Dallas, Minnesota, Phoenix. You can even say Sacramento, and I've seen some. There was a pretty big rumor about the Kings and Jazz looking at a trade kind of centered around John Collins. But each of those teams that are in that play-in right now, 7 through 10, are teams that feel like they should be more in the 3 to 5 range. Every one of them, because they had a lot. They're all teams that are pushing to the top. Golden State maybe, but I don't know. They seem like they're afraid to make a trade. So they talk a big game, but then never actually make a trade. So We'll see if the Jazz end up making any trades, but we'll get a little bit more later into exact potential returns for guys like Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, John Collins, who are going to be the biggest names that you see involved in Jazz trade scenarios or actual trades potentially.
Right. Yeah, very true. Last few minutes of the show here. Let's see how we did in pick 6. Last week, end of last week, we tried to predict what will happen for the upcoming weekend. I have 3 lines. Jason has 3 lines. And on Monday, we tabulated all together and see how we did.
So let's start with the lines that I set. Combined points for Reed Olson and Jude Haig, the matchup on Friday against the Grizzlies and the Wolves. And well, it ended up being a dominating win for Green Canyon. I set the line at the combined points and rebounds for those two at 53.5. Reed Olson averages like 17 and 11. Haig averages like 23 and 8. But they only ended up with 38 combined points rebounds. Now, mind you, I don't actually have rebounds for Jude Haig because they didn't report those yet. But unless he had a career high 15 rebounds,
it's a crazy game.
So I'm going to guess he didn't, having watched that game. I'm going to go ahead and just say the under hit. I had the under, you had the over.
Okay.
If it turns out later, I'll go back and change this.
We can do a correction if it's needed.
Yeah, but next one, Boise State 3-pointers made against New Mexico. I set the line at 8.5. I took the under, you took the over. They made 5. They had a bad night.
They did.
And they got whooped by New Mexico. So I'm up 2-0. Combined rush yards by Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson in their matchups at the line at 95.5. I took the over, you took the under. Not a whole lot of running for those two relative to what they normally do. They combined for 59. So the under hits there. So you got one back. Bobby Wagner tackles in his playoff game. You set the line at 8.5. I took the over, you took the under. As you mentioned earlier, he had 8. The under barely hits. So we're tied 2-2. Donovan Mitchell points against Oklahoma City in that rematch. You set the line at 22.5. I took the over, you took the under. Cleveland lost, probably largely because Donovan Mitchell only had 8 points.
Ooh.
So you're up 3-2. You're on 3 in a row here as we go into this last one. Utah State's net rating today, you set the line at 37.5. I took the over, as in they'd be worse. You took the under. They were 41 today, as when I checked earlier. So the over hits there. So we're tied 3-3.
Going to a tiebreaker.
Let's go to the tiebreaker. Skyview by 4.5 over Ridgeline. You took Skyview. I took Ridgeline. That gave you Skyview. And Ridgeline did indeed win that one, 58-48.
Oof. Oh, so you won.
I win pick 6.
On the tiebreaker.
On tiebreaker.
That was a close one. There we go. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Utah Jazz basketball coming up next.
This is Kyle Filipowski, and you're listening to Utah Jazz basketball on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.